Alright guys, I am back with my review of last week's episode of Jesse Ventura's Conspiracy Theory Season 3, Episode 3, Time Travel. And I was really looking forward to this episode because it is a really interesting topic. I love looking at all the old pictures of the people who might be time travelers, and I think it was a Charlie Chaplin movie where the girl looks like she's on the cell phone. And a lot of this stuff can be explained, but it still looks really cool to see someone who looks like they're out of place back in a different era. And it's also funny that this episode came out last week when Listverse has an article, the top 10 reasons why time travel just isn't possible right now. But I did enjoy this episode. It's not one of the stronger ones they've done this season so far. In fact, the episode I just got done watching, The Ozarks, I thought was much better. But it still is pretty interesting. It does get a little out there at times though. And it starts off with Jesse in a room with a time machine. It comes back to it later, but that's how it starts off. And the first thing I thought of was Napoleon Dynamite with the crystals and stuff. So Jesse's talking to this guy, Alfred Weber, and he tells Jesse the government's been going back in time and he wants to expose it because it's dangerous and people have been hurt and they're doing experiments on these people. So he says DARPA and the CIA are using this technology. They had photographs of the plane hitting the Twin Towers back in 1971. And the presidents are known 30 years ahead of time. And they tell them before they're elected so they can train them to become the presidents. And I thought that was pretty interesting. But he tells Jesse to talk to this Chrononaut who's going to blow the whole thing wide open for him. A Chrononaut is someone who's been back in time. So Jesse's talking to the team, and apparently China has banned all mention of time travel on TV, which is kind of weird. Terrell and Sean see a guy about the Philadelphia experiment, which is another old conspiracy that I've always enjoyed reading about. I remember listening to a lot of the Art Bell shows on Coast to Coast where they had a guy who supposedly worked on the Philadelphia experiment. And he also tells them about the Mantoc Project. June goes to see a man who says he was a part of the Mantoc Project. A lot of people died. And Sean goes to see a psychic who has talked with survivors of the Mantoc Project, and she tells him that it's very real. So they're kind of just going around talking to these different people, trying to get a feel for what the conspiracy is. That's how they build it up. And then there's this guy, Stephen Gibbs, who has a actual time-traveling device he's selling on the internet. So Terrell buys this device, and the team, Sean, Terrell, and Jesse, go to Vegas to use this thing because they have to be near a vortex. And they bring in an expert who claims he's been back in time a bunch, and he tells them, I wouldn't use this device, it's dangerous. So he wants them to go back in time mentally, and Jesse's not buying any of this. He actually looks really pissed off. But this guy wants him to go back in time mentally, and Jesse says that's not time travel, that's daydreaming. And they're getting really frustrated. I think Terrell walks out of the room, and it was really lame. I mean, this guy didn't really provide any evidence of time travel, so they just leave. And they find the Chrononaut, Andrew Basego, and he says that he was part of the DARPA Project Pegasus in the 60s and 70s when he was a kid. And he says he met George Washington. A lot of this was a bit of a stretch. So he says he met George Washington, gave him advice on how to win the Revolutionary War. He says Obama was also a time traveler as a kid. And he has a picture of himself at the Gettysburg Address. So now it's Jesse's turn to meet this guy. And he's explaining the device they took the kids on to time travel. And when he's describing it, it shows like a picture of it. And it looks just like a Stargate. That's exactly what I thought of when I saw this. But he takes them to this place in Santa Fe where he teleported, he says. And Jesse really doesn't buy anything this guy's saying. So he takes him to a house he stayed in 1973, and then he stayed in again in 1972. And the current owner of the house has never heard of him. so this was kind of awkward. But he can describe the layout of her house. So, I don't know. There really wasn't enough evidence to support this guy's claims. A few things here and there doesn't really help what he's trying to claim. So, I don't know. It was really tough to believe this one. But the guy shows Jesse the picture of himself at Gettysburg, and I mean, it's just a black and white photo. It's hard to make anything out. The guy kind of looks out of place, but it doesn't really prove that it's even him. And this one was kind of wacky. So Jesse looks at the picture, and this guy has a whole backstory behind this picture, what he was there for, what was going on in the background. And it was just really a whole drawn out story this guy's come up with. So at the end of the episode, Jesse actually says he doesn't believe the story, but he thinks that this guy does believe it. And that maybe he doesn't think he's a time traveler, but he thinks maybe he was used in some way by the government and they did something to his memories. That's pretty much the best you're going to get with this. So that's how the episode ended. It was definitely one of those ones where you're having a lot of trouble just believing anything. I mean, it just got crazier and crazier. So I thought it was interesting, but definitely not one of the better ones this season so far. So anyways, that's my review of this last week's episode of Conspiracy Theory. Hope you guys liked the video. Leave your thoughts on this episode in the comments, and I'll be back with my review of the Ozarks. So thanks for watching.